Hey, everybody. There you are. Come on in. It's time. As soon as I can see the locals' comments separately, and then we'll have a show for you. The best podcast of all podcasts. Here we go. It's all working. Yay. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Ra-da-da-da-da-da. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the highlight of human civilization. It's called Coffee with Scott Adams, and it's the best thing that'll ever happen to you in your whole darn life. But if you'd like to take a chance of elevating this experience up to levels that no one can understand with their tiny, shiny human brains, all you need is a copper mug or a glass, a tankard, chalice, or stein, a canteen, jug, or flask, a vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine end of the day, the thing that makes everything better. It's called, that's right, simultaneous sip. It happens now. Go. Oh, so good. Wow. Better than usual. The usual is pretty good. Well, I wonder if there's any science that could have been cheaper. Yes, oh, here we are. According to Sci Post, Vladimir Hedry is writing that a healthy diet is associated with better cognitive functioning in the elderly. Huh. So it's almost as if the things you eat have an effect on your body. Huh. And it's almost as if your brain is part of your body. Huh. You put those two things together, and the things you eat can affect your brain. Did you know that? Well, I knew it. They could have just asked me. They did not need to do a study. Let's see, is there any other study like that? Oh, yeah. Eric Dolan is writing also for SciPost that people who are high in psychopathy and low in cognitive ability are the most politically active online, according to a study. Now, did they really need to do a study to find out that most of the people I deal with online are low IQ psychopaths? It's the one thing everybody knows. If you have any conversation about anything political on X, you look in the comments. The whole time you're looking at the comments, you're thinking, man, you're dumb. And also probably a psychopath. Yep. You did not need to do that study. Next time, just ask Scott, hey, are the people online who talk about politics sort of more likely to be dumb psychopaths? Yeah. Well, a number of schools across the country, I don't know how many, are now requiring students to lock their phones in a phone pouch for the entire school day. I guess the pouch makes it impossible to get a signal to the phone, I assume. But the pouch locks, and I saw a video of it. I guess there's a one device that the students have to walk past to unlock it. So they just put their little phone pouch on top of this surface and it unlocks it immediately. So when they're on the way home, they can get their phone back. Now, I feel like that's one of the best inventions ever because it wouldn't really be practical to take their phones away from them. But if they want to keep their phone and they just want to have it in a little pouch so they can't get to it, that's a pretty good idea. So I guess that's working out. Well, there's some fake news coming from a New York Times reporter who's also an MSNBC analyst. Peter Baker is writing that um, because of Trump's takeover of Washington, D.C., at least in terms of the criminal policing, that the restaurant business has gone way down. And somebody pointed out, you're comparing that week to the same week last year. And the thing you missed is that last year, this week was Restaurant Week in DC, meaning that all the restaurants had deals and they were trying to get everybody to eat that week. So he was comparing a regular week to last year, the special restaurant week, and thought there was a big drop. So that got pointed out. Um, Remember, I told you that all data is fake and that even when the data is correct, people will still misinterpret it. That's about as misinterpreted as you can get. Well, apparently, the border wall, according to Christy Nome, is going to get some cameras. I didn't know how much of the wall already had a camera, but apparently not all of it. So they're adding more cameras and sensors, but they're also painting the wall black because apparently black will make it hotter and it'll be harder to climb it because it'll be too hot, which is kind of clever. I saw that Trump was credited with wanting it to be black. I don't know if he's the only one who came up with that idea, but it is kind of clever. But here's the most important part of this story. Do you remember when the wall was controversial? Do you remember how much effing time we spent talking about whether a wall is necessary or useful or worth the money? Do you remember how much energy we put into that debate? And now, nothing, nothing. A major story about the wall being improved, no response. The Democrats have completely capitulated on the wall. Well, according to a new study, let's see, New York Times, I guess, found this out. There are 498 what they call AI unicorns. The unicorn is a company with a valuation over $1 billion, a startup. So it has to be a startup as well. And there are almost 500 startups in the AI space that are individually worth $1 billion or more each one. Does that sound like much of a bubble? Now that's a bubble. That's a bubble. It's a weird kind of a bubble because a lot of the investors are feeling like they have to have a lot of investment in AI no matter what. But they're probably running out of good ideas. But at the same time that we've got this record number of so-called unicorns, Meta is looking to downsize. Oh, actually, that's the one from the New York Times. It was CB Insights who knew that the unicorns were almost 500. Anyway, so Meta is looking to downsize, but that doesn't mean that they think AI is worth less. It might mean that they just have too many people. The White House has launched its official TikTok account. Trump said in the video, "I am your voice." Now, I guess what this will do is, will it make Democrats hate TikTok? It will, right? You would expect that as long as the White House is fully embracing TikTok, you'd expect the Democrats to say, "No, TikTok is the worst thing in the world." Well, I don't know what all Democrats will say, but Minnesota, that is very Democrat, according to the AP, they are joining with other states that are suing TikTok, alleging that the social media giant is abusing children mostly by turning them into compulsive consumers of their short videos. Now, this is a really interesting case because you could almost argue that they're being sued for being too good at their product. If you were making a product that people liked so much they could barely stop using it, would you call that a crime? Would you sue somebody that made a completely legal product that was so good that your brain would just, be on fire with dopamine and you would love it and you'd want to just keep doing it. No, I totally agree with limiting this for children. I think it's dangerous. But it's weird that you can get in trouble for making a product that people like too much. And it's not illegal. It's not like fentanyl, right? Where you're gonna die from it. Anyway, so that is one example where the Democrats are after TikTok. We'll see if there's more of that. Um, there's now we're getting reports that in 2023, when Joe Biden was on 60 Minutes, some people are now reporting that he was, quote, drowsy and had to be, quote, prodded into answering questions while he was on camera. Now, my question is, was he already on medications by then? Uh, in theory, that was before he knew he had prostate cancer. But I can tell you from my own experience with the pain meds they give you for prostate cancer that if he was on anything like what I was on, I'm not on at the moment, I would fall asleep in conversations. I could be listening to somebody talk to me right in front of me, and then suddenly I'd wake up and I'd realize that for a moment I had fallen asleep while I was talking to somebody. And that was not like just regular tired. I think it was the meds because it hasn't happened lately, and I'm off those meds. So I do wonder if that was the meds. Maybe. So we were in a lot of trouble back then. That was a risky time to be alive, but we got through it. Meanwhile, the EPA head, Lee Zeldin, is talking about how the Democrats used his agency, the EPA, to funnel billions of dollars to their cronies, basically. So apparently, the Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, as they called it, um, created a bunch of money, 20 that would go to various places, and they took $20 billion and they parked it at an outside bank, and then sent the money through 8 NGOs, non-government organizations, that were riddled with conflicts of interest, according to Lee Zeldin. Um, so I feel as if between the Mike Benz revelations about how money goes to these NGOs and whatnot, that we now understand the entire mechanism of control that was behind the Democrat criminal organization. Now, I feel as if the Democrat Party wasn't even a political party and isn't. I'm talking about it like it's past tense because it almost is. But the degree of criminal activity, even things that maybe are not technically, maybe not technically criminal, but they should be. It should be illegal to take $20 billion and funnel it to your friends. Um, but now that we know that's how it works, I feel like the whole party is going to get starved because they had this whole illegal, somewhat legal funding source, and looks like that'll be dried up. You would not be surprised to learn that the Democrat Party is facing what the New York Times calls an all-time voter registration crisis. Well, actually, the New York Times didn't say that, but they're reporting on it. So apparently, in the last 4 years, the country has swung a net 4.5 million voters toward Republicans. So almost every red area is up in registration, and almost all the blue areas are down. It's almost universal. There's more Republicans everywhere, and there are fewer Democrats everywhere. And it's happening in the battleground states. So, but the weird thing is, when I read a story like that, you would say to yourself, all right, We found out all the Democrats are criminals and they don't have any leadership and they don't have any money, and registration is way up under Republicans. So you would tell yourself, oh, this means that Republicans will win the midterms, right? Probably not. I don't know. I don't have a prediction yet for the midterms, but for whatever reason, it almost doesn't matter what's happening. It's always a close race, and it feels like the party that's not in power pretty much almost always wins the midterms. So there's so many variables, but so many of them don't matter in the end. Well, Bill Pulte has referred as part of his job in the FHFA. He alleges in or the FHFA alleges in a criminal referral to the Department of Justice that one of the Federal Reserve governors, a Lisa Cook, committed mortgage fraud. And it was a similar kind of mortgage fraud to what AG Letitia James in New York was accused of, which is having more than one primary residence. Now, the reason people say something is a primary residence is they get better rates. They save money that way, but it's illegal to lie on your mortgage stuff. So pressure on the Federal Reserve continues. All right. Tulsi Gabbard has head of the DNI has revoked security clearances for 37 current and former intel people who were involved in one way or another with the Russia Gate hoax. I have a little bit of mixed feelings about this. On one hand, it seems completely fair if they were working for the government and they were involved in a hoax. On the other hand, I don't know that all 37 of them knew it was a hoax because they weren't all on the inside. So I do worry that it went a little bit too far. Some of them were probably lower level people who just did what they were told to do. So, but they could have become whistleblowers. They could have quit. They could have said, I won't work on that. So I don't know. Probably it makes more sense to revoke their security clearance than it does to keep them, but we'll see. The DOJ is also looking into allegations that the DC police falsified crime data to make it look like it was going down. Is that a crime? Is it a crime to lie about or to, I guess, recategorize crimes as lower crimes? What would that crime be? If the government can't lie to you, what would they have to do? I mean, it's not really illegal to lie, is it? In that context, we'll find out. Rasmussen did a poll to see if people approve on having an early census, to have it redone specifically to make sure it doesn't count illegal residents. And 57% of likely voters approve of Trump calling for an early census, a new census. 57%. So it's not an 80-20, but once again, Trump is on the majority side, where he likes to be. There is a whole set of accusations that I can't decide how credible they are, because they're in the category of things which don't seem to pan out. But on the other hand, they're coming from people who seem to be quite confident that they know what's going on. So Alex Jones was talking about this, a quote bombshell that the 2020 election was stolen by the CIA working with communist China. Does that sound like something that's real? We know there was the allegation that China created a bunch of like 20,000 or so fake driver's licenses. And the allegation is that the reason they did that was for Chinese residents in the US who were not citizens to be able to use the fake driver's licenses to get ballots and vote. Do you feel like that's true? Do you feel like we have the evidence for that? I don't know. So there are allegations about voting machines being rigged in other countries, and an allegation that that same technique may have been used in the U.S. But I feel like we've been hearing that set of allegations for years now, and it hasn't turned into anything that's like a real smoking gun. Like it's almost smoking, like it's like threatening to smoke, but it never really seems to get over the hump to have like a proof or a whistleblower or something like that. So it's a shocking and surprising set of allegations, but I don't feel like I can quite believe that these will turn into something in the real world. I just don't know. So I'm not sold yet. Just to be clear, I do think it's likely and probably most likely that the 2020 election had some irregularities. I just don't know what they were, and I don't have any proof of it. But obviously, the pattern of the voting is it's just too suspicious to imagine that nothing happened. Maybe we'll never know. There were we just found out, the post millennials reporting on this, that there's a training class for therapists in which they can get 3 credits, I guess, toward your I don't know, continuing education or something. And the therapists who are teaching it, they're mental health professionals, and they're teaching the people that Trump supporters are a cult on a national scale that presents an image of bringing the country back to a white majority and white power. That's an actual professional class that you would get credit for if you're a therapist. Now, you know how we always joke that therapists are people who themselves have mental problems, and that's what attracts them to the whole how do you solve mental problems profession? I gotta say, I saw the video of the 2 instructors. They looked batshit crazy. Like I mean, they just looked really mentally ill, and people are paying for this class. Oh my God, I can't imagine sitting through that. By the way, all the people who tell you that Trump supporters are a cult, they don't know what a cult is. It's dumb. Well, Daniel Greenfield is writing on the topic of Letitia James. And apparently, Letitia James has said in an event recently, quote, we have to stop believing or following the rules. Break the rules. Well, turns out she is somebody who has broken a few rules, allegedly. I'm still blown away by the fact that when she was running for election as Attorney General for New York, that she actually said in public, as part of her running for the office, that she promised to go after Trump and go after the NRA, and did not have any specific crimes or allegations at that time. She literally targeted an organization and a person and said, if you elect me, I'll go after them and I'll find something. And then she found a bunch of bullshit things to charge him with. And now she has to answer for that. So I guess Special Prosecutor Ed Martin is looking into everything she did, and even he's called on her to resign. Now, I don't know if that's appropriate. I mean, should the special prosecutor call on somebody to resign before the investigation is complete? Well, I do think that what we know so far would support that. I've never seen that happen before, so that's kind of unprecedented. Looks like Ed Martin followed her advice and broke a rule. He didn't break a law, but he certainly broke sort of an unwritten rule. And so that investigation's heating up. um, the the Letitia James case that was brought against Trump, this is the banking one, where allegedly he lied to the bank to get a loan, but the bank didn't think he lied because it was just normal that the bank checks valuations on their own. They don't really take the customer's word for anything. And they made money and they'd be happy to do business with him again. So he got prosecuted for doing things that there was no victim and nobody but him would ever be prosecuted for it. So that went to a New York appellate court. But apparently it's been stuck in that court without a decision for, I don't know, a year or something. So Jonathan Turley is writing about this. How in the world could it take so long and be so stuck? Here's what I'm guessing. I'm guessing that, first of all, the appellate court is mostly Obama appointees. So you know that they want him to be guilty because they're almost certainly Democrats. So they want Trump to be guilty of all these charges that he was, found guilty on. But on the other hand, they're probably having trouble supporting it because it was so obviously just lawfare and so obviously not something that should have been prosecuted the way it was. So they might not even be able to rule on it. And if they ruled on it quickly, then it would go to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court, I'm guessing, would reject it and overturn it for being lawfare, basically. So maybe they're just stalling it, because if they don't stall it, they're going to have to release it so the Supreme Court can get to it. So, anyway, so Mike Davis, who's a prominent Republican lawyer, he's been pushing for federal investigations of Hillary Clinton, Obama, and Biden. And MSNBC is saying that they think that's coming. And I have to say again, it seems to me, and this is not just pure political stuff, it just really seems to me that the Democratic Party is a vast criminal enterprise in a way that the Republican Party definitely isn't. Now, I'm not saying that the Republican Party has no criminals in it. Obviously, they both do. But I am saying it doesn't seem to be an organized mass conspiracy where they're coordinating with each other and they've got this network of NGOs that they're funneling money through. It doesn't look like any of that. So there is a difference. And here's something else we know now from the Washington Free Beacon. So as you know, George Soros funded the installation, you could call it, of a bunch of attorney generals and prosecutors, and funded their campaigns and helped them get elected. And there was an organization that he also funded to sort of support them. So it was a support, and they would even do things like fund office assistants, actually literally funding to make their job easier. Well, apparently the head of the Soros organization that was supporting all these Soros prosecutors, she left her job after being accused of being a racist who was oppressing and slighting and discriminating against Black female employees. So here's the fun part. On paper, the Democrat woke process should end up in eating itself. And what I mean by that is it's fair to assume that if everything is identity, that no matter, even if you form as a bunch of Democrats who are really thinking all Republicans are racist, it wouldn't matter. What would matter is that the identity within your group, within the Democrats, would eventually turn on each other, because That's design. It's designed for that. So sure enough, the black women who were working in the Soros-funded organization just turned on their leader, a white woman, and we'll see where that goes. But it does make me think that Governor Newsom has no chance of being president. Because in what world do the Democrats, who are the identity party, pick the whitest white guy to be their leader? Biden was a special case because he was sort of, an Obama guy, et cetera. But I can't see any scenario in which the Democrats can get a white guy elected as their leader. How in the world would that make sense with everything that they've done up till now? And it's not like he has some great track record to run on. So he might be the candidate, but I don't think there's any way he would. Do you remember that it wasn't long ago when we were being told by our alleged government that the biggest risk in the United States was the white supremacists? What happened to that? Have there been a bunch of white supremacist attacks that I'm not aware of? Or was it always bullshit? I know nobody's talking about it. I don't see a lot of reports about, they're forming their militia up in the hills and they'll be attacking us any minute. I don't know. It was. I also wonder in general why there are so few terrorist attacks. Are we that good at stopping terrorists? Or can you let millions of people into the country, including thousands of terrorists probably, and still have no terror attacks? How's that even possible? I don't know. It's amazing. Well, the Democrats are trying to make it look like a failure that Trump had all the European leaders at the White House and had a good meeting with Zelensky and had some phone calls with Putin. And they're spinning that into the reason that the Europeans came is to make sure Trump didn't make bad decisions. Is that what you saw? Now, there's obviously they want to be part of the decision and they want to make sure the decision doesn't, not make sense for Europe. So obviously they want to be influential in his decisions. But does that seem fair? That the only reason they came is to try to control Trump? I would say that Trump created a situation where it sort of forced everybody to participate, which is a big win for him. That's what I'd say. In other funny news where Democrats are trying to find something wrong with what Trump is doing, apparently John Oliver, he just did a 33-minute long segment on his show attacking Make America Healthy Again, and sort of laughing at it because good health is out of your control. Unbelievably, a prominent, Democrat-sided person, I don't know if he's technically a Democrat, but he's on that side, the best they could do is to come out against trying to solve chronic health problems and acting like there's nothing you can do. That doesn't even sound like a Democrat. It's so weird. Well, the Gateway Pundit is explaining what I was explaining earlier about the NGOs. So Zoran Mamdani, the guy the communist running for mayor of New York City, apparently one of the ways he gets funded, and this is described by Joel Gilbert is writing it in the Gateway Pundit, but apparently there was some article in July about how the elite money flows. And who wrote that article? Sam Antar. And so here's the way the Democrats fund things. One way. So a billionaire will make a tax-deductible donation to a charity. Now, that's the first thing you need to know, is that the billionaire gets a tax write-off. Now, the money belongs to the charity, and the billionaire did not, limit what they could use it for, just gave it to the charity. Then the charity can use it for whatever they want. So they transfer some amount of that money to their political affiliates, which would be different organizations that are in political domains, like like PACs. So once the PAC has it, their entire thing is to give money to Democrats. So it goes. So the billionaire gets a tax write-off for giving to a charity, but the charity doesn't use it for charity. They give it to a political action committee, Democrats, and then the Democrats help the politician get elected, their politician, and then that politician makes sure that the government gives more money to the charity so that the charity will have more money to give to the political action committees that will get the politician. It's basically a huge criminal enterprise, starting with the fact that the billionaires shouldn't be getting a tax deduction for a political contribution. It's just if it's laundered through the charity. So that's happening. Also, our museums apparently have become woke garbage, especially in Washington, D.C. So Trump is out to fix that. The Smithsonian, he says, is out of control, and that the Smithsonian is focusing too much on how horrible our country is and how bad slavery was and how unaccomplished and downtrodden people have been. And he says, Trump says that there's nothing about success and our bright future. And I agree. The purpose of our national museums is should be propaganda. It should be to brainwash our own population into thinking we live in a great country that's worth supporting. That's the reason you have the museums. We don't have the museums just because it's interesting. No, you have the museums to brainwash people. But if you do it right, you're creating a positive, which is people feel good about your country, and they're more willing to, support the military and everything else. So I think Trump is 100% right that our federal funded museums, they need to be pro-America, and they need to not be saying we suck. Well, Elon Musk is reportedly liking J.D. Vance for president in 2028, and so much so that between the fact that he wants to concentrate on his businesses, which he's been doing, he's allegedly, according to the New York Post, pausing his plans for a new political party. Now, I was always a little skeptical if he would follow through on that, and it looks like he doesn't want to cause trouble right now, and he might prefer just backing Vance in 2028. We'll see. The Oregon governor refuses to end sanctuary state policies, even after Trump threatened to take away their federal funding. And also the Boston mayor is also not going to cooperate with ICE. So it does look like ICE is going to, or not ICE, but it looks like the government's going to come after them. Stephen Miller says that these sanctuary cities like Boston are going to face potential criminal charges for harboring and smuggling illegal aliens. So that'll be exciting. All right, I have to make a decision here because I am having a health outcome and I don't know if I can make it to the end of this. So I might have to end early. I've been having some stomach digestive issues that are DEFCON 10 right now. Boy, do I want to see if I can get through this. So I'm gonna power my way to the end, but I'm gonna end early. Gavin Newsom's proposal to redistrict in California allegedly has a 22-point polling advantage. We had heard that it was underwater, but according to Axios, it's very popular. Now that makes sense because it's a Democrat state, so I kind of assume. Trump made a little news by joking that he's trying to get to heaven, and that's one of the reasons he's trying to end this Ukraine war. He thinks he might get to heaven if he can end it. Well, here's the part I wanted to do before I end. I have a suggestion for ending the war. It starts with the knowledge that Scott Bessent gave us yesterday. Did you know that before the war in Ukraine, fewer than, actually less than 1% of India's oil came from Russia, and now it's 42%. Let me say that again. Before the war, India was only 1% of India's oil came from Russia, and now it's 42%. And India and China are the two biggest buyers of their oil. So Russia would be in real trouble if India's 42% went back to 1%. But you say to yourself, well, India needs that oil. But it turns out, according to Scott Bessent, that what might really happen is that India has profiteers who are buying the oil for cheap from Russia and reselling it to other countries. Yeah. So it turns out the way you go from 1% to 42% is that you're not using it domestically, you're buying it cheap and then selling it. So it does seem to me that Trump has a lever if he can influence India, either by tariffs or not. But I came up with my own plan for solving the war, and I saw Bill Ackman was interested in it on X. He asked if anybody had a counter argument. But here's my argument for ending the war. Their big problem will be Russia will want to keep all the territory it conquered, and Ukraine will want to give back none of it. Will want to give them none of it. So how do you solve that? My suggestion is that you solve everything else, like the security guarantees. You solve the things that you can solve. But when it comes to who owns those disputed territories, you just put it off. You say, here's the deal. In 2 years, randomly picking 2 years, we will do a referendum in those territories, and whatever the locals say they want, that's the way we'll go. If they want to be Russian, they're Russian. If they want to stay in Ukraine, they stay in Ukraine. Now, you're going to say to me, Scott, you fool. You simple fool. Don't you know that Putin will never do an honest referendum? To which I say, I know. That's part of my plan. Part of my plan is if you put off the part about who gets what, you can solve everything else and stop the killing. And then 2 years from now, you'll do a referendum. There will be complaints that it's rigged, of course, but we'll sort of be over it by then. It would be unlikely by then that the war would start up again, and Putin would just keep the territory that he captured. Now, the reason that this can work is that it sort of kicks the can down the road of who owns those territories, and it gives you at least a public argument for how the residents are going to get what they want. The reality, of course, will be different, but we can at least get past this, and we're going to get to, Russia was going to keep those territories anyway. So nothing changes except the argument for how those territories became Russian. If the argument stays, Russia conquered them and that's why it owns them, that's not good, because maybe Ukraine just can't allow that. But could Ukraine allow Russia to control that territory if the residents in a referendum said, yeah, we prefer to be Russian? They can. So it would give Ukraine a way to give something up without looking so much like they gave something up. So there would be a little fiction involved that the residents really are in charge of the decision. They wouldn't be, but it would look like it, and that might be good enough. If anybody has a better idea, I'd love to hear it. So that was the main thing. Just a few other things of interest. Allegedly, according to Fortune, 14.5% of China's young professionals are unemployed. Do you think that's true? That almost 15% of China's young professionals are unemployed? That would be a problem. Apparently, the U.S. is sending 3 destroyers and 4,000 troops down to the coast of Venezuela to combat the fact that Maduro, head of Venezuela, is really essentially a cartel operative. So I don't know how hard Trump is going to go against Venezuela, but it might be pretty hard. And nuclear power is having a golden age, and I'm just too much pain to talk about it. So I'm going to say bye for now. I can't talk to you today, locals. I really need to take care of my health here. I'm in serious, serious pain right now. Thanks for joining. Bye for now.